how much do you remember from high school chemistry? I mean, I barely remember anything, right?
Not much at all.
Right,
Yeah.
not much at all. Really a waste of how many hours of my life.
Yeah.
Right? There are lots of stuff. And in college too, like you don't really get a chance to learn much. And ultimately it's wasted time. Learn one thing well, then you can learn anything well.
What is the process for learning? Is there a process?
Well, I think, yes, there is.
Like, how do we learn?
Right. So that's such a good question. I wrote a book, 25 years ago called What Smart Students Know. And I did the following. I realized that, by the way, I'm not plugging the book. I am not. Absolutely not. Because I can summarize it now. And I wish I had the time to rewrite the book. But what I did was this. No one ever shows us how to learn, ever. Nowhere in school. For example, imagine, Shane, in French class, French 101, your first French class, your teacher said, everyone, you're going to have to learn a lot of vocabulary in this class. So before I teach you any words, I'm going to teach you a way to remember vocabulary. They never do that. They just go, we're going to have a quiz on these 30 words on Monday. Good luck.
Right.
But they don't teach us how to learn, actually, or remember things. Like, for example, they don't tell students, if you want to remember anything, create a picture, a pattern, a story, or a rhyme out of it. All mnemonics come back to picture, pattern, story, or rhyme. But they don't tell us that. So we struggle. We create flashcards, which are totally ineffective. And we keep rereading our notes. So I wrote What Smart Students Know. I gave students a page from a geology textbook, like a sample page. And I spent the next 200 pages showing how to actually, what it would mean to learn that. Like I actually...
that's amazing.
It's really cool, right? I mean, not that you would do that depth, but like, what does it mean to learn that page of information? Like, here's everything that you would actually need to do. By the way, if I told you all the steps it would take you to tie your shoe, it'd be much harder than just watch this, right? So the secret to learning anything is this, anything. I'm glad you asked that question. Rehearsing. If you want to get good at football, play football. If you want to get good at playing the guitar, play the guitar. If you want to get good at chess, you've got to play chess. Now, you want to break that down to certain skills and rehearse each one of them. So you see people playing pickup basketball or tennis, and they haven't broken it down to skills, and they're just out there playing, right? You want to break the domain down to sub-skills and then rehearse each one. Now, the reason I use rehearse is you want to do exactly what you would do in the actual game, right? So, for example, if you want to get good at taking tests, you have to take tests, which is to say the following. Let's deconstruct that. So I'm going to, in the next 2 minutes, summarize everything there is to know about learning a subject. And it's this. You rehearse whatever you are required to do on the test. So think about a test. On a test, you are asked questions you've never seen before. And you have to search your memory for the relevant information, right? So step 1, read the question. Step 2, search brain for relevant information. Step 3, collate that information into an answer, right answer. You have to rehearse each one of those steps to do well in those subjects.
Right.
So what that means is you need the way to prepare for a test. I hate the word prepare or study, because here's what most people mean by the word prepare for or study for a test. Reread my notes. If you think back to when you were in high school and college, I looked at most students, and what they would do is they would highlight their textbooks and take lots of notes and then reread their highlightings and reread their notes. But that's not rehearsing a skill.
Right.
No one tests you on how well you highlight.
Right.
No one tests you on rereading your notes, because on the test, you're not rereading anything. You're seeing an entirely new situation. So the way to get good at any subject and any domain is to rehearse the skills that you're actually required to do.
So practice questions.
Practice questions that you've never seen before. And you then have to search your memory for the relevant information. By the way, it helps. What I would do in college is I would get textbooks the teacher wasn't using, and I would see what questions were asked there. So I'd really get questions I'd never seen before, even from authors, textbook authors that weren't my professor and weren't the authors of the textbook I was reading. So I'd really get stumped with questions, right? And so, because that's going to happen in the actual game. So, for example, imagine you're a basketball coach, right? And you want to train your basketball players. At certain points, your key player is going to be out of action, right? Fouled out or injured, right? I would have them play basketball games where take out one of the players and you're now playing with 4, right? Or one of you, like I would try to find a way to make their arm a little like wrap it up or something so that it was a little constrained. Like,
Right.
okay, you've got a muscle sore.
Yeah.
Now you're playing the game.
Now
Like,
practice.
Now practice. Now rehearse.
Rehearse.
Right? So rehearse under varying conditions. But the key to learning any skill, really, if there's anything I said today, like that was super important, the key to learning any skill, rehearse it. Break it down into sub skills and then rehearse each of those skills. If you're doing something other than that, you're wasting your time. Rereading your notes, waste of time. You want to get good at a job interview? Have someone ask you questions. Someone who doesn't know you, ask you questions, right?
And then grade your feedback and
get-
listen to it. And
Exactly right. And then exactly right with the feedback, Shane. Then, okay, I spoke too fast.
right.
I was coaching a young woman. She had a job interview coming up. And whenever I spoke, she did the following. Here, talk to me right now. And I'm going to pretend to be her listening. So talk to me right now, Shane. Just say anything.
What I want you to do is go to
She would say, so quickly. And I said, are you aware that you are signaling that you're not listening to the other person? And she was dumbfounded. And she'd gone to Columbia University. I mean, a good school, right? Great school. She said, no one's ever told me that before. I said, you say, so quickly, there's no way you heard what I asked you or said to you. And all you're signaling is you're not listening to me. I already don't like you. I liked her. I mean, I was giving her
Right,
feedback
yeah.
as a mentor, right? And so you need feedback. And she was stunned. She said, no one's ever told me that before. And I said, just talk more slowly. Don't say so quickly. Listen to the person.
So let me encapsulate this a little bit. If I'm in school, I'm in university, high school, I'm doing physics. The questions at the end of the chapter, which most people annoy or avoid, and teachers may assign the odd numbers or the even numbers.
Right.
You should be doing them all and not looking at your notes, trying to do them. And then if you're stuck, go back and look in your book.
Exactly right. If you reread your notes, all you're getting good at is like following problems you've already seen before. That's not going to help you when you get a new problem because that's what's going to happen on the test. I'll go one better. You want to get really good? Try the sample questions at the end of the chapter before you read the chapter.
Oh, that's interesting.
Now, because what that does is it primes you. Now all of a sudden, whoa, how would there's no way I can answer those questions. Now you're primed as you read the chapter of what's relevant and what's not. And you also prime yourself for the following. What happens when I have incomplete information?
Right.
What happens if I forget the Pythagorean theorem? How do I answer the question then? That's what I did at the Princeton Review, by the way. What happens when you know only 2 of the 5 choices? What do you do?
Right.
Like there's a whole range of things that you can do when you're skilled, right? So what happens what happens as a baseball player if I've got sweat in my eye and a fly ball is coming at me? What do I do, right? I mean, you need to rehearse for the unusual as well as
non-optimal conditions.
Non-optimal conditions, because you can't ever count on optimal, ever. And if you get them, great, you're lucky.
So would you organize what smart students know differently now, or would you take this same approach, which is like, here's a page of geology, and how would you update that?
I would ask them to say, I'd ask them to break down. I'd teach them how to teach themselves. I'd say, okay, in a little Socratic way, on their test on this material, will you have seen the questions before, yes or no? No. Like I'd step them through and get them to discover, whoa, rereading my notes is just a total waste of time.
Right.
Like that's all they do. They take notes in class verbatim. Here's a skill. On the test, do you parrot back exactly your teacher's words or do you express them in your own words? Well, of course, you express them in your own words. Well, then you have to rehearse doing that. Right? So when you take notes in school, they're probably verbatim just because you got to keep up with the teacher, right? But then translate those notes into your own words because that's what you're going to have to do on the test. Don't reread your notes. translate them.
Right.
Because you got to do that on the test. And if you haven't done it before, you're not going to be able to do it on the test.